Could this be the best alternative to the Ford Ranger Raptor yet? Yes, it is another Ford Ranger, but this one here is the Tremor, a limited edition version which costs $20,000 less than a Raptor. And it's not $20,000 less in terms of what you're getting for your money. So I'll tell you everything you need to know about it in this review, and also I'm going to tell you some really great alternatives to it. If you haven't already, please like, subscribe and ring the bell to keep up to date with all of my videos. It does help a lot, and let's get to it. The Ranger Tremor starts at about $70,000 before on-road costs, so it's about $3,500 more than the sport grade that it's based on, but I think you're getting more than $3,500 worth of extra value if you do decide to step up to this model. Things that are added over the sport grade include these 17 by 8 inch alloy wheels with General Grabber AT3 tyres. They are really quite good, those tyres. And you've also got the Bilstein shock absorber upgrade all around, so it's got remote reservoirs for all 4 shocks, and it does make a big difference to the ride quality and comfort, but we'll talk about that when we get to the drive experience later on. And you're also getting a few extra exterior features to make it look a little bit different. I'll show you those in a sec. The interior gets a vinyl seat trim with Tremor embroidery. It actually looks pretty cool. And some of the great features that you get in the similar sort of spec versions of the Ranger, including the 10-inch touchscreen media system, digital instrumentation, and electric driver's seat adjustment as well. Now, it's not necessarily the most posh feeling on the inside, but I think it feels pretty plush, and I'll show you that in a sec. But let's talk about some alternatives to the Ranger Tremor, because there's some good ones. All right, when it comes to alternatives, the obvious one is the Ford Ranger. Any other spec of this car, and you could spec it up to how you want. And if you chose a Raptor, you would get the best off-road capable truck on the market, but maybe not the most practical truck in terms of using it for family use, especially if you go towing, especially if you need to use as much payload as possible, because it's not necessarily as practical as it could be in those instances, but it is also an absolute bloody weapon. Now, if you are looking at something a lot more affordable, you might want to go and check out the GWM Cannon XSR. It's just over 50 grand drive away. It comes with a 7-year warranty, and it has some really great off-road tech, including a tank turn system like this. It's from the GWM tank range, and they've adapted it for the Ute, and it actually does a pretty good job in some situations. It's maybe a bit more fiddly, but I guess it's a whole heap cheaper than this vehicle. Another option, if you are thinking 70 grand's not too much for your budget, then you should go and take a look at the Toyota Hilux GR Sport. Hit the link in the description below and you'll be able to check out my review of it. It is an absolute weapon off-road. Bloody uncomfortable on-road, but hey, we've come to expect that of the Hilux in this generation. And another option you might want to take a look at if you're thinking, well, I want a better balance of off-road capability and on-road comfort, is the Volkswagen Amarok. There are a bunch of different versions available, including a V6 diesel if your budget allows it. And there's also a turbo petrol model at the top of the range too. But I think that the bi-turbo version in that model range is actually pretty good value, although I would probably try and opt for one with the 40mm lift kit, which is offered through Volkswagen. It's a fantastic accessory and makes for a more comfortable drive experience, even though it is pretty much one of the most comfy utes out there. If you've checked out an Amarok or one of those other utes, let me know in the comments section below and tell me which one you would pick. Would it be the Ranger or one of those alternatives? Something completely different. It's still the same size as a regular Ranger, but it does have a wider track. It's got the hardcore black Ford badge to tell you that it's a serious off-road product. It's got a slightly different grille with those little lights in between as well. And of course, it gets a suspension makeover. So it does sit higher. It's got a wider track thanks to those bigger 17 by 8 inch wheels with General Grabber tires. They are pretty serious tires, and also it's got obviously that Bilstein suspension to raise it up a little bit. Now, it does look pretty good. I'm even a bit of a fan of these stickers. I'm not usually a sticker guy. It still gets the handy things you would expect, like the box step at the side. And yes, we're going to take a look in the tray to see what we are dealing with. And just like all the other Rangers, it's a pretty sizable tray for the class. Now, this one gets a drop-in plastic liner, so it can be a little bit slippery, but you can also configure it to suit your needs. The cargo management system here, so that means that you can lock things in place if you need to secure things. It also gets the long leg sports bar, which actually makes it a bit more impractical. So if you need to reach in from the side, it's actually not that easy to get in there. You have to sort of go up here or go down to the back of the vehicle and climb up. So I don't like that roll bar thing. I think it looks a bit silly and it is a bit impractical, but you also get a 12-volt port back here, which is good to see, and there's a couple of tie down points in the tray as well. I'll put the tray dimensions on your screen now so you can see for yourself. It is one of the most practical in this class, and there's also those handy little clamp points on the back as well, but you don't get the measuring tape on this grade. Now, it's got a very light tailgate as well, which I really like. It does shut nicely, and underneath this tray area there is a full-size spare wheel as well. Yep, it fits in there somehow. You can see for yourself that those are your Bilstein shocks with the leaf spring rear suspension, and the remote reservoir for the rear shocks is up a little bit higher out of the way so it doesn't get bumped and bashed, which is bloody handy, I reckon, because it needs to be out of the way. Okay, so the interior of the Ranger Tremor does look a little bit different. It's not startlingly different in terms of the design, but there are some more blacked out elements on the inside, and also you get the dark headliner, you get these Tremor embroidered seats, and look at that vinyl finish. That is something else. I mean, it's designed to be really easy to wipe down if you've been out in the mud, and I guess that is a fit for purpose consideration for this vehicle. There are some other elements which maybe could be better. You don't get the pop out cup holders like you get in some high grade versions. You don't get the top glove box either, but you do get this auxiliary switch panel up here, which means that you can basically not have to jerry-rig things when you need a switch for driving lights or whatever it may be. So that's pretty handy. There's a sunglasses holder up there, but because it's based on the sport grade, you actually don't get illuminated vanity mirrors, just regular vanity mirrors on that side, and same on that side as well. So look, there maybe are some vanity features that you wish you had, but otherwise the interior finishing, the treatments here are pretty good. Logical controls, once you've been in a Ranger before, you'll get used to these steering wheel controls very easily, and interacting with the screen in front of the driver is also quite easy. You use the controls on the steering wheel to do that, and look, I reckon that it is a pretty simple system to use. One of my favorite things about it is that it does have a very simple lane keeping assistance feature to turn off. You just hit that twice and it'll turn off. It'll show you on the screen. And speaking of the screen, this one gets the 10-inch touchscreen media system, slightly smaller than some of the high-grade versions, and it still gets Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, and plenty of menus beyond that. Now, you've got navigation built in as well for this version, and you've got a trailer assistance feature as well. So you can set up a profile for a caravan, a boat, a camper trailer, whatever it may be, horse float, and it will be able to basically adjust the parameters of the vehicle to suit that trailer in tow. And it's also got a really handy thing down here. This version does have the option pack that includes the Pro Trailer Backup Assist, which is that little button right there. And then when you're reversing a trailer, as long as it's configured correctly, you can just use this rotary dial to turn between which way you want to go. So if you want it to reverse to the left, you turn it to the left. If you want to turn the trailer to the right, you'll turn it to the right. So that means none of that tricky counter steering business that you usually do when you're trying to figure out how you're going backwards and not crashing into things. So look, I think that that is a really great piece of tech. I think that's a really brilliant piece of tech, and I hope to do a towing review shortly to give you a bit more of an indication of how it works in reality. Now, you've also got really good features down here like buttons and dials. Who would have thought that they would be a highlight, but they are. You've got fan control, you've got climate control buttons and dials as well, and obviously it does show up on the screen there as well when you are using those controls. So as you can see for yourself there, it does make a bit of a difference to have those things on the screen as well as down here, and I think that that's just so good that you've got those features. You don't get that in an Amarok, and that's one of the things I like more about the Ranger than the Amarok. Wireless phone charger is standard in this spec. There's a little storage tray there, some cup holders, a covered center console bin. When you're on a launch event, they often like to put lots of sugary things in there, and we're in the bush as well, so those might come in handy for someone who eats too many sugary things. And then there's also bottle holders in the doors as well, and soft elbow pads on the armrests up front. But hey, let's check out the back seat space and see what it's like. Okay, this seat is set for my driving position. I'm 182 centimeters, 6 foot, and I've got enough knee room behind to be comfortable. Foot room is a little cramped. I've got pretty big feet, but I think that it is pretty decent in terms of the comfort back here. You can fit 3 adults across the back if you need to, but if you are going to be hauling little ones instead, there are ISOFIX points in the window seats, and you also get top tether points in those window seats as well. So you can actually drop your top tether strap down behind the seat, and I reckon that's a better solution than the ones that have it tethered to behind the middle seat. And also, there is a flip down armrest. You have to pull it down like so. I always get this wrong. There we go. Yes. Cup holders in there as well if you need them. And look, you also get features like mat pockets on the seat backs. There are bottle holders in the doors. There's directional air vents. You don't get USB ports, but you do get a 12-volt port so you can plug in an adapter. And you've got soft elbow pads on the doors. And I just want to show you one other thing about the back seat. Yes, so you can lift this seat base up and it gives you extra storage space, which will be dry and secure. If you have things that you want to keep out of the eye of the public, you can put them in there as well. It's a nice little hidey hole, and it is a pretty practical thing that a lot of utes maybe don't do quite as well as this one. This version of the Ranger comes with a 2-litre bi-turbo 4-cylinder diesel engine, and it's different to the other bi-turbos in the lineup. It's the Euro 6 compliant engine. That means that it has a AdBlue system integrated into it for your after treatment for emissions. So it's a bit of extra complication, might be a little bit of extra cost as well that you need to consider, but it's still a very good engine. You'll see the power and torque figures on your screen. It comes with a 10-speed automatic transmission as standard, and it's also got a full-time 4-wheel drive system. So not the selectable 4-wheel drive, it does have 4-wheel drive auto mode, so you can drive it on sealed surfaces in 4-wheel drive, and it'll choose where the torque needs to go in those situations. Now obviously it's still got low range 4x4 as I'll show you shortly, and when it comes to towing capacity, it's got 750 kilos unbraked trailer rating and 3.5 tons for a brake trailer, so it leaves the Raptor in its dust in that regard. You'll also see on your screen now the payload capacity for this version of the Ranger, and I'll also throw up there some numbers that you need to see when it comes to your gross vehicle mass and also your gross combination mass. And you need to do the maths and keep in mind your maximum tow ball down weight as well if you are planning to tow with this thing. And if you are planning to go towing quite a lot, well, there's also the availability of the Pro Trailer Backup Assist function in this vehicle, and it's standard on higher grades. Basically, it allows you to reverse into a parking spot using just a dial instead of having to counter steer, and that makes a lot of sense when you use it. I've used it in the F-150. You'll find a link for that review in the description so you can see it in action. All right, let's go for a drive, shall we? There are a few things that you need to keep in mind if you're considering a Ford Ranger Tremor. All right, so it does have the raised suspension, so you do get a slightly better view out around you. I mean, compared to other utes that have been lifted, it's maybe not as high as some, but it does also have those general grabber all-terrain tires, and that gives it a broader patch on the road. So it's got a wider track, which makes it feel a little bit more I guess in contact with the surface, and a little bit more broad-shouldered when you are making steering moves, for instance. And the steering itself is actually pretty bloody good. Just like every other Ranger, it's got that fingertip lightness at low speeds, but also a nice amount of directness at higher speeds and good responsiveness in terms of the way that it feels when you do turn the wheel. That suspension, look, it does have some really good traits, but maybe some that could be a little bit better depending on what you like, right? So if you're okay with feeling lots of the little lumps and bumps in the road surface, well, you probably are if you're considering a hardcore 4x4 like this, then yeah, you just need to be mindful that it does have that sort of characteristic to the way that it will ride over small lumps and bumps in the surface, but it does handle really big obstacles, sharp, big bumps, that sort of thing, quite well, considering it's got the leaf spring rear suspension and the live rear axle. It's, you know, pretty good in terms of dealing with that sort of thing. And hey, part of that comes down to the fact that this car has been engineered with payload in mind. So according to Ford's engineers, the suspension has basically been calibrated with a half payload limit in mind. So if you are going to accessorize the shit out of it, you're going to put a bull bar, you're going to put roof rack, you're going to put a canopy, you're going to put stuff in the tray all the time. Yes, you need to be mindful of the weights that are allowed for this vehicle, but the suspension should be up for the task. And with just 1 or 2 people on board, as I've experienced today, it's pretty good, pretty comfortable in most situations. Just that sharp edge thing that I mentioned might be a little bit of a sticking point for some people. And in terms of road noise, yeah, you get a little bit more from those tires, but it's not too bad. And you get some wind noise around the mirrors, but honestly, it's a dual cab ute with some serious off-road extras. So I think you're gonna have to cop it if that's what you're thinking about buying. And yes, it's only available with the 2-litre bi-turbo engine. And it's like saying only is an insult, because it's a bloody good engine. It's still one of the best engines in the class. And it's a small capacity with plenty of grunt, and it does have plenty of gears to play with as well. It's certainly not underdone in any way. It just maybe isn't as compelling or lovable as the V6 diesel might be for some people. I could understand if you were like, nah, not interested, I want the V6, and that's totally understandable in my mind. But it does have a really good powertrain. The 10-speed auto is mostly very clever, although it can be a bit busy, but you can lock it out to have just 8 gears active or 6 gears active if that's what you want. You might do that when you're towing, and it does have some pretty good towing specs as well, as I mentioned. So look, there's manual mode as well. If you do want to do the gear shifting yourself, you can use the little toggles on the gear selector, but honestly, I've just left it to its own devices and I've had 0 complaints, maybe just a little bit of a whinge about the fact that it is a bit of a busy transmission. But otherwise, it's very good on the road. So let's go and see what it's like in the rough stuff. Now, just like you might, I've put the car into 4-wheel drive low range. Now, this car does have a 4-wheel drive auto system, and that will get you surprisingly far off-road without having to put it in the low range and, well, live with the gearing that you get with low range. So if you are maybe a novice, or you're maybe not sure about the surface that you're about to go over, 4-wheel drive auto could actually be a pretty good option for you. Just make sure I don't bottom out too much here. This car does have aluminium side steps, so you might want to be careful of those. They will be more sturdy than plastic, I'd imagine, but maybe not as good as a set of proper steel rock rails or something like that. The new mode for this version, it's not available on lower grade versions of this vehicle. It's rock crawl. So let's just see what happens when we go over some rocks and go crawling. Put this button down here to put it into off-road mode. I've got the turn assist on, turn off the rear differential lock, put on the all-speed trail control. So that's your off-road cruise control system that will work up to about 30 k's an hour, which is actually pretty good. And we'll cruise on down here. We're in low range, 4-wheel drive, as I said. And look, those shocks certainly do deal with the really big compressions quite well. Little bumps and lumps you can actually feel more than you might expect, and that's partly to do with the fact that you've got a pretty big contact patch with the road below, and or the whatever the surface is below at least. And yes, it does mean that it's maybe not as comfortable in some situations as a version that maybe doesn't have these aggressive sort of tires on it. But look, you've also got the extra ground clearance that comes with that suspension upgrade. You'll see the ground clearance figure on your screen now, and that does make a difference. It makes it far more amenable to dealing with big lumps and bumps in the surface below, and obviously that's what this vehicle's all about. Now I'm going to do this turn assist system through here, so just locking on full lock here, and it'll lock up the inside rear wheel to get me around there, and easy done in what would otherwise potentially have been a 3-point turn maneuver. Go out this way, let the throttle do the work for me. Yep, straight through there, no stress. Cruising, absolutely bloody cruising. Up around this very tight little bend again, using the turn assist system and using the forward view camera as well, which is a revelation. If you haven't driven a car with a really good quality off-road camera system, you will be surprised at how important it can be in different situations. The beauty of this ute though really is the fact that it just combines all of this so well together to be such an impressive all-around off-road package, straight off the showroom floor, standard tire pressures. Like, you might be surprised at how far this vehicle can actually go off-road without any further modifications or even lowering the tire pressures. It's bloody impressive. And if you're after something that is, well, really, really good at the on-road thing and also brilliant when it comes to the off-road thing at this kind of money, well, I reckon this could be the right car for you. It's just a shame that the V6 isn't available in this Tremor grade, but there is an Everest Tremor coming very soon, and it will be V6 only. So if you are looking for something that's maybe even more practical for a family especially, it'll have big towing capacity, big off-road capability, and a bigger engine. So I can't wait to review that one. Let me know if you're looking forward to it as well.
The official combined number is on your screen now. That's what you should be able to achieve across a mix of driving. We've done a mix of on-road and off-road, including some low-range driving, and you'll see what I saw on your screen now. That was the displayed figure. That's not too bad, I don't reckon. You are going to typically see around 10 litres per 100 Ks if you aren't doing off-road stuff.
The Ford Ranger achieved the maximum 5-star ANCAP safety rating a couple of years ago, and it does still come loaded with heaps of standard safety technology and equipment. Things like autonomous emergency braking with pedestrian and cyclist detection. There's adaptive cruise control, lane keeping assistance, which is very easy to turn off. I like that. And there's also blind spot monitoring, rear cross traffic alert, parking sensors, and a reversing camera is standard as well. If you option the package that's available on this car, you also get the off-road camera system and a surround view camera system, and I reckon it'll be the best money you could spend. It's not that much extra, and it will add to the ease of use of this vehicle on a daily basis. It's got plenty of airbags too, 9 in fact. That's a lot. Ford Australia offers a 5-year unlimited kilometre warranty for its model range, and there's also 5 years of roadside assistance included. Hey, did you know that Ford also offers a new insurance program? So you can insure your vehicle, including accessories, and in tradie cases, including the tools as well. And it doesn't have to be a Ford either. Make sure you go and check out the Ford website if you want to know more about the Ford Insure product. It seems really pretty bloody good, if I'm honest. Hey, also, I just mentioned the servicing for this vehicle. There's a 4-year cap price servicing plan available. The pricing for it is $379 per year or every 15,000 Ks. And look, that does seem pretty good. I do wonder what it will cost after that 4-year period though. Maybe a bit more. For me, this could be the best option for someone who is looking for a off-road ready and super capable 4x4 ute with plenty of practicality, lots of great features, but also a more palatable price tag than some of the more expensive versions of this ute, which do push it just a little bit. Tell me what you think about it in the comments section below. Would you go for a Tremor, or would you choose one of those options I mentioned earlier on, or something completely different? And please, if you haven't already, hit like, subscribe, and ring the bell to keep up to date with my videos. I like making them, I hope you like watching them, and it means a lot. All right, thanks, I'll see you in the next one.